This is our third roundtable from this series. I'm Dmytro Vasilyev, Deputy Director at the Center for Energy Research, and today our topic is energy sector crisis from political perspective and from the point of view of preparation for winter. First, I'll introduce the participants, and today we have from political parties that represent the coalition in the parliament, and they formed the government. Viktoria Voytsytska from Samopomich Party, she's secretary of the Verkhovna Rada Committee for Fuel and Energy Complex, Nuclear Policy and Nuclear Safety. Oleksiy Ryabchyn, MP from Batkyivshchina Party, Chamber on the subcommittee on energy saving and energy efficiency at the Committee of Fuel and Energy Complex, and Natalia Katser-Buchkovska. She is from Народный Front, People's Front Party. She is chairperson of the subcommittee on Sustainable Development Strategy and Investment at the Committee on Fuel and Energy Complex. There's also a sign that says Oleg Lashko. We invited him and he did promise to be with us. However, something like 30 minutes ago, he called us and said that no, his plans have changed. I asked him how to tell this to the journalists, and he said, just say that my plans have changed. And yesterday, also Igor Nasalik has made that said. He's an MP from the bloc of Petro Poroshenko. We hope that he would be here and speak here more than, especially so because the current Minister for Fuel and Energy was suggested by this party. On the left I have, and probably you all remember that there was a coalition agreement before the government was formed, and this document told us about the reforms in energy sector and energy efficiency. There are several dates there and several plans that could help to better prepare for winter. Thank God the past winter was more or less warm, and we didn't have any serious problems, and we did survive the winter and heating season. This year we also hope for God's help, and the winter will be mild. However, it can happen otherwise. I remember that the first round table was held with the representatives of the government of Ukraine, including Vice Prime Minister Vitaly Voshevsky, who headed the creation of the action plan for the possibility that there would be some problems. This plan was drawn with the help of Americans and Europeans, and of course they said that if the winter is will be mild, then there will be such problems. If this will be cold, then the problems will be sharper. That still they will be solved. Of course, the coalition that created this government, and they put in place the minister who says that we will overcome any problems. He said this in response to the question of the Prime Minister. Yesterday he also said that we will have the delivery of coal from many sources, including Russia. As a citizen, I have a question why we have to cooperate with the aggressor country and pay for the coal that there is in our territory. Well, anyway, today we're talking about the political aspect of the preparation for winter. First, I want our MPs to speak, and then we will have Q's and A's. Please switch on the mic. Natalia Katser-Buchkovska, head of the Committee on Sustainable Development. As the moderator said correctly, in fact, we are now facing the issue that the situation in the fuel and energy sector is sufficiently critical. If we take the political aspect, then the political document, the main political document is, of course, coalition agreement that provided for two aspects: the aspect of the strategic development of the fuel and energy complex while the coalition is in existence, and the second set of issues is tactics. For instance, living through the winter heating season. So what's happening in the strategic direction? There was a task set to demonopolize the market of natural gas and to create a competitive one. Do we have any success here? Yes, there's a law on the market of gas adopted. Now we are working on the strategy of demonopolizing national shareholding company Naftogaz Oil and Gas and the regional entities as well. So we have something done in this direction. As far as tactical tasks are concerned, as you probably know from the previous roundtable, at the moment we have a problem of not enough gas pumped in to start the heating period of this year. As for the electric energy, at the moment we are working on the new law on the market of electric energy, of electricity, and this is what concerns what is within the responsibility of MPs. And a very important law on regulator, on the national company that has to, the law has to make this body independent and politically unengaged. Regrettably, this drafting is still in process, and at the moment a number of international experts and the Energy Secretariat and many colleagues from embassies are providing consultations, so the work is going on. As far as tactical issues are concerned, the provision of coal for electricity production during the heating season, regrettably we have information prepared by our international experts who have worked for quite some time at the ministry. They say that we lack, there's not enough coal. If the temperature is -4, then we lack 7 million tons, and if the temperature falls down to -20, then we probably lack something like 20 million tons. So we can say that the situation is rather critical. What was the position of the government in this aspect? To involve international representatives from 11 countries of the world who used to work with such situations in different countries, who would analyze the objective situation and provide a vision of solving this situation. Regrettably, there's quite little time, and we have only several months before the heating season starts, so the action plan provided for by the international experts, you know, it has more than 40 points in it, and the Minister for Energy, Mr. Dmytro, was entrusted with fulfilling these measures, and however, some of them have to be completed by the end of August, mid-September. As far as buying, purchase of coal and pumping in of natural gas are concerned, the situation will be solved and there will be further decisions, maybe rather critical decisions, how to act in this situation. I'd also like to say, as far as the strategic tasks are concerned, this plan provided for quite a lot of things. In fact, we're living from winter to winter, and if the last winter was rather mild, you know, it was, of course, the country was under aggression, it was rather hard to live through this period, but in the future we should set ourselves the aim not to live from one winter to another and to get away and out of this crisis situation which we seen from since 2005, and Russia as aggressor has always used gas delivery and supply as a weapon, we should rely on ourselves. First of all, we should diversify the delivery of gas, and we're doing this, and there are certain successes in this also to provide for sustainable production of electricity. We should have a system that should work in a stable way so that we do not switch off regions and enterprises, and the level of energy efficiency and energy saving should rise and should be raised, including the delivery and supply of electricity. As far as energy efficiency is concerned, the Parliament and the government have adopted a number of measures, a number of laws on raising energy efficiency, the management of condominiums, of blocks of flats, that will provide for the creation of mechanism of saving. Then the state agency on energy efficiency have staged several events that, or rather adopted several measures that proved their efficiency, about the compensation of some loans used for for purchasing energy efficiency equipment, and a number of other measures. So this is one of strategic directions which is extremely important, because Ukraine consumes something like 3 times more than an average EU citizen. Experts say that in order to decrease the consumption of energy 2- or 3-fold, so that we could no more buy gas from Russia, and so that we should not subsidize the sector. We should be in trend also and develop renewable sources of energy and energy from the sun, from wind, and this will help us to stop buying energy from the country aggressor and other countries, and those purchases are always expensive, and the energy from local resources is rather cheap and efficient to use on the territory of Ukraine. So there are strategic issues: energy efficiency, diversification of supply of energy resources, the creation of competitive conditions on the market of gas and electricity, and tactical issues of living through the winter heating season, which is under threat at the moment. So we will see how the plans of measures will be fulfilled, created by international experts, how the situation will develop in the nearest weeks, and we will arrive at conclusions.
Thank you, Ms. Natalia, Ms. Viktoria Voytsytska, subcommittee session secretary of the Verkhovna Rada Committee on Fuel and Energy Complex. I would like to thank my colleague Natalia for most informative introductory speech, which is very inspiring. Now I would like to myself to express more criticism, our vision of our political forests. One is today our energy sector in the political context, among others. I'll start with the very basic thesis that 1 year back, when we were setting up a coalition, everybody understood only too well that one of the major tasks in reforming the energy sector in Ukraine must be the task to make it, to render it independent of Russia. What we are doing today in order to be, well, we were not completely dependent on natural gas, but we were significantly dependent on that. Now we have alternative ways of rivers, supplies of gas from Europe, but we 1 year later became dependent on Russia, not only gas-wise, but also we import now the electric power, and as Minister Dmytro, we are going to import coal as well from Russia, and there is a big question arises. I mean, what are our attainments or achievements? What are the results of the activities of the team which had to deal with the reforming this sector? That's why I would like to speak on the two key lines here: the issue of coal and the issue of gas. Number one, the natural gas issue. You, as the experts and journalists, you know, you have the information about the amount of the natural gas pumped into the underground storages. You know better than me, and you also know that today's level is such that, well, though we and Naftogaz team did everything possible in order to increase the volume of the imported gas and distanciate from Russia through Europe, what we have, we are talking about our own production or recovery of the natural gas. Now, today we hear how we can become independent of the imported gas on the one hand. On the other hand, we created such a mood of the regime of taxation, which actually kills the domestic gas recovering company. They have to curtail their own programs of production, and perhaps we'll lose about 500 million cubic meters of gas this year. What we have to do? We'll have to buy somewhere, either in Europe, but we have some restriction, limitation regarding the rivers, or to turn to Russia. So what the question is, do we stimulate or kill in our own production, gas production? Number two, coal. Coal is this individual and separate issue which is too much politicized, like the whole sector as well. This is a result of the shameful privatization which took place for the last decade, which actually damaged all the, did harm to the assets, and actually they turned the state-run monopolies into public monopolies into the private monopolies. Speaking in simple words, this is a war in the country between the major oligarchs, who are the owners of this sector, who blackmail everybody, including the government, speaking about the increasing of the price for the coal. Given the arguments that there is a certain price for the coal which import from certain sources, and when we had the parliamentary hearings on the issue, my specific question I asked, what are the grounds of your position or the need to increase the price for coal? And the general director of the TEC, he said that there is a very complicated calculations which actually necessitate that, but he never produced or never made those calculations available to us. There's something with microphone. Interesting kind of coincidence. Well, I don't think so. Well, seemingly it works. Could you please check it? What I could understand from documents provided for the consideration and provided by the regulator, among others, there was some kind of clarification about the demand to increase the coal price. So one of the arguments was the credit portfolio of this company, about $3 billion. So the question is, where they spend the money, this money for which needs, or and have the Ukrainians to compensate for that. Well, coming back to our story, we weren't going to get into much details. Should you have any questions, I'll take those. But in any case, what I can see on the part of the country, there is the need, there is striving not to respond to the blackmail on the tech company. They are threatened with some kind of the fan-like disconnection of the power supply, but our government invents something. Let's purchase coal first from Russians, And number two, we are not going to provide any kind of opportunity to other players or other companies from different countries to become part in the open, I repeat, open tenders to be held for the procurement. Moreover, I now received the reply from the Kyivmenergo regarding the companies from which the Central Energo were purchasing coal this year. You can visit my page which contains this information. So, well, if you're talking about this kind of one-day companies or the wildcat companies, without any explanation who is behind that or what is behind that, when I communicate with the reps of international traders, they say we are prepared to offer Ukraine very beneficial or favorable conditions for the supply of coal, and we are prepared to work on a long-term basis. But there is no response from the ministry to those proposals. So there are more questions than answers in this case. What we would like to achieve, what is our objective as our goal as the state? And our objective as a state, as was mentioned by the leading US and European experts, and I would like to talk about that a bit later. So the major thing here, according to them, is a cooperation with the Japanese government, with the Japanese who actually would like to, they had to present that this month, and it was postponed to October, the master plan for the energy sector development in Ukraine. All of them are talking about the competitiveness, transparencies in the situation where not only the Ukrainian players would be present who determine the rules of the game, but also other players in order to diversify the sources of supply. For example, the same coal. Now about specific, let's say, challenges, what kind of opportunities and challenges we are going to face this winter, the upcoming winter. The God will be with us, we can pray for that, but we should not rely too much on that. So we have to be prepared for the worst scenario. And here we have to prepare the social thought for the situation that we have, and there will be a possibility when our radiators in our apartments, they were used to be very hot, maybe we won't see them as hot this year. And here I would refer to Poland when they had the energy crisis. What they did when they actually experienced this kind of great want for electric energy, they acted in compliance with the basic laws of economy, supply and demand. The supply was restricted. So what did they do in order to restrict the demand? They started to increase the prices for the energy resources. This is one of the tools how to stimulate, let's say, decrease in consumption or of consumption. As Natalia aptly mentioned, we have one of the highest level of consumption of energy as compared to the neighboring countries and developed countries. We can talk that the population, especially when we are talking about the multi-story buildings, they do not have a chance to, let's say, to turn off, let's say, the toggle, let's say, or this regulator to decrease the consumption of the heat. But we have to think about some program when the people themselves can impact the level of consumption of energy. Oleksiy will talk about the energy efficiency. I believe he will provide a lot of answers to your questions. One more point what I'd like to draw attention today. This is a very interesting story around the Central Energy Company, which recently was on the list of the companies to be privatized, and Prime Minister actually insisted to do that as soon as possible, and it had to be a closed transaction. But here I would like to talk with you about fundamental thing pertaining to privatization of energy facilities, energy-related facilities. Just a few words before that, just as an introductory, we planned 17 billion hryvnia, which we are going to obtain as a result, privatization, not only from the energy sector. We already obtained this 3 billion plus from selling the shares. So we have a little bit more than 6 billion, and that's why we did not have this demand or the requirement to privatize something, because it's not an acute problem. We have the Ukrenaftov, which does not pay to the budget a lot of billions. So now we are talking about privatization. So let's think about that. From point of view budget, we do not have that big burden that we just have to sell those. There is no such need. The requirements of the World Bank and etc. that we have to privatize those facilities, this is not true. This is actually a lie. This thesis which doesn't have anything to do with the reality. When we actually communicate with the representatives of those institutions, what they say, that we have to do everything possible to make our market transparent. We have to remember that our major task in privatization is not filling the budget, but modernization. In other words, we have to bring here such investors who not only will pay the market price today for this another facility, but take in consideration the warfare, the crisis in the situation the country is living through, such facilities, center energy. I doubt that anybody will find anybody who will pay a lot of money for that. And another point, again, communicating with the European community representatives, so the Americans, Canadians, they all say one simple thing. When we are talking about privatization of central energy, they do not understand why this haste, so to say, why we should hurry that, make that faster for sake of water. And now we're going to hold one of the function where we are going to invite the investors who would tell us about their expectation of the privatization process. Our expectations will be as follows. In addition to the money to the budget, we have to have the institutional, professional investors who will put their signature under the document of modernization facilities, where our losses will be 30 to 50% from the generation or supply, or where we could substantially decrease the. We would be talking about certain commitments concerning investments. Let's be honest. Today, Ukrainian investments, just hypothetically speaking, that this or another guy will be able to purchase the energy facility at this price, where we are going to have this $100, $200, $500 million for investments. This is a big question. Regarding the central energy, another thing, because I already touched upon the cooperation between the Ukrainian and Japanese governments. I don't know why they do not write or tell about that much. The Japanese government actually carried out the due diligence, technical analysis of some of certain energy-related facilities, and they proposed the modernization program, several of them. The first of them provided for increasing the efficiency and the energy units up to 80-90%. They have actually some of the investment in their pockets, which actually are targeted and oriented for this specific project. But who knows about that project? Practically nobody. In my opinion, this is kind of sabotage or subversive action. Even the Europeans or Japanese said, if you carry out or implement this program, if you provide for those investments and carry out this modernization, the price or the cost of those facilities will increase several-fold, let's say. And what do we see here? There is a demand to sell these as soon as possible, but who is going to buy quickly those facilities? Save the insider, who nobody knows what's behind that. Perhaps I've used too much of your precious time, but I would like to say that reforms in the energy sector, actually there is no reform per se. Status quo, the fight between different groupings for the assets, and for the redistribution of the spheres of influence continues this struggle. And there are no real steps to reform this sector. They're not visible. As legislators, we do everything possible in order to change this sector, but this is not enough. We, unfortunately, we are eyewitness, let's say, a considerable slowdown at the legislative power.
I would like to, there's an urge to ask immediately who's guilty and what to do, but we will answer this during Q's and A's. And before I give the floor to Oleksiy, I would like to remind you about the crisis of electricity generation in Poland, and also let's think about gas. Until recently, we have consumed up to 50 billion gas. In Poland, the figure looks like ours, but it is radically different, 15 billion cubic meters of gas. So the question to Ukraine is why we use so much more when our territory and population is more or less equal. Thank you very much. I won't be original, and just as like my colleagues, I will talk about good things and also criticize. What is good for me and for the entire country is probably that the Energy Committee and the Parliament are the leaders in this sphere of changes in the energy sector. We have adopted several laws that several years ago no one thought that they would be passed. And of course we still need a lot of regulatory acts, but we are optimistic about such things as the demonopolization of the market, the alternative and the tariffs, alternative sources of energy, the impulse for bioenergy development, where we have a huge potential, the law on transparency in extracting sectors, which we are the authors and which was supported by the Parliament immediately in the first and second readings. So I think that the Parliament is ready to vote for the laws that demonopolize the sector and fight, I don't love the word oligarchs, but will fight such phenomena in our energy sector. However, well, as far as we are leaders at the level of draft laws, which is marked by our public and our foreign experts and foreign friends, and we do have a lot of foreign experts at our disposal and a lot of resources. However, the issue of implementing the laws, I think it is very weak. I remember the moment when we signed the coalition agreement and where we actually made acquaintance with my colleagues, and there are 8 points on energy sector there. However, I was greatly surprised when the Cabinet of Ministers was formed and they filed their plan. The agreement on energy actually took a page and a half, and the point of energy efficiency contained just one sentence: we will raise energy efficiency at the expense of alternative sources. When I asked why this is so, they said we lacked papers, so we decided to make just one line out of two. We were demanding from the government that they include our coalition agreement point as the program of the government, but now we see that they are actually working along the lines of those 1.5 lines that were drafted by the government. When we talked to the government, they told us, let's live through winter. We, have to survive through several crises, and after this we will look into energy efficiency and alternative energy production and gas. And our international partners said, yes, we understand there's war, let's live through winter. So we lived through winter. At the moment we are at approximately the same point. They say again, let's live through winter, because we have problems with Russia and problems with currency. And in this way, they delay the work on new draft laws, for which we actually selected this government. My colleagues had a very efficient cooperation with the government and international bodies on several issues, including the law on the gas market, but we also had a negative experience, the draft law on regulators, probably the most important laws. They twice tried to push through the parliament a draft law which was recognized non-ideal by the public and experts and our partners. There were corruption risks and political dependency leaks. We did repel this draft law, which says that the parliament works as a filter that does not adopt laws that are not needed by the country. At the moment, we have a very active working group together with our Japanese, Canadian, and European partners, and the ministry started to work with MPs because we had problems with going to working groups about which we didn't know in time. And this says that the demonopolization that happens now can be done in the way of redistribution of property and assets and some other way, because energy sector is a huge market with a lot of temptation and a lot of interests. One of the biggest interests and one of the biggest conflicts everywhere in the world is the fight between extracted traditional sources of energy and the renewable alternative source of energy. In fact, our energy ministry is an extracted ministry of the Soviet type. As far as I know, we don't even have a department at the ministry that looks into renewable sources. For instance, in some European countries, the ministry says, the ministry is called the Ministry of Energy and Sustainable Development, or the Ministry of Energy and Ecology, which says that they are thinking about future generations for which we should leave at least some of these resources, and they watch over the efficiency of the use of energy. But, for example, in the parliament, we have renamed the committee, which was called the Committee for Strategic Development. We now call it the Committee for Sustainable Development, headed by my colleague Katser-Buchkovska. And this is a signal both for the market and stakeholders that the parliament is for change. I, for instance, very much am for the vice minister who will be responsible for energy efficiency, maybe for a year or two or three, but still we need it. Or a special body responsible for energy efficiency instead of the state agency, which we criticize all the time, although we do respect them. And several ministers are involved into energy efficiency issues, like the Ministry of Economy, that has to prepare energy efficient programs like the comprehensive thermal modernization of buildings, which will of course help to decrease the consumption of energy, because the housing sector is very inefficient in consuming energy, for which people do pay very high tariffs, which is a special topic which I would not touch upon, not to politicize this round table. The insulation, ventilation, the replacement of windows is quite a process that does not only makes your housing warmer, but it also creates jobs and creates opportunities for small business and opens opportunities for resettles, for displaced persons from Donetsk and Luhansk regions who can find themselves there. And I think that this is within the authority of the Ministry of Economy. And of course, this is also the authority of the Minister of Finance to talk to investors. If the IMF, for instance, says that, let's presume, says, we do not allow you to spend more than we agreed on, we should make it clear that these are investments that will come back to us in a year. So this is a very comprehensive work of the Minister of Economy and Finance and Energy. And I'll also touch on the tariffs. It is a crime to raise tariffs while you do not provide people with an opportunity to consume less. Yes, of course, as Natalia said, you can take a loan, and there will be an attempt to relaunch this program in a more effective way. And the market is developing, although not as efficiently as we would like to. But still, we do not provide the consumers with an opportunity to use less heating energy. You know, you can switch off your lights, you can control the consumption of water, but still you cannot consume less gas for the heating. I still like the European approach more, when people are stimulated not with fiscal methods, but with changes of behavior to consume less energy. These are higher matters, of course, which we are looking into with our European colleagues. This is a great difference when you see you have European and Ukrainian officials on two sides of the table, and ours say we should raise the tax and do this and that, and Europeans say you should draft a law that will provide for the labeling of buildings that will show how much energy the building consumes and what has to be done for it to use less energy, because people who want to buy a flat, they do not know how energy efficient it is. And if there's such a labeling, then people will be informed to make their choice. We should work more on the issue of energy efficiency and energy saving. What's done? For instance, tomorrow there will be the last working group that, on the basis of the Agency on Energy Efficiency, on the control and accounting, without 100% accounting of the consumption of water, gas and heat, the country will not survive. This is a must-have. This is a basis of all the actions on energy efficiency. There are two draft laws, one drafted by the public and one by the government. There's an attempt to merge them into one. And the group on labeling has finished its work on the energy efficiency of the buildings, within which the fund for energy efficiency will be created, which will be filled at the expense of those subsidies that were not used by the population to finance the energy efficiency measures. We can also do demonopolization of the sector to make simpler the getting of permits for smaller energy devices. In Europe, you can see some trade centers where the roof is covered with solar batteries, and they do not only provide for themselves, but they also sell some to adjacent residential buildings. And of course we should raise the energy safety as well, but for our official and for our oligarchic proprietor, this means the decrease in their own profit, because such a beautiful object will bring less profit. So I think that with such directions as I outlined, the task of the Parliament is to help change the behavioral modes and also demonopolize the sector in order to make easier the efficient use of energy and the use of natural resources. And in the entire world, this branch gives more and more, and most of all, new jobs, and fight oligarchs and monopolization.
I shall provide a very detailed story about the key problems we face today. I believe we are going to have lots of questions which could be answered by the representatives of the Petro Poroshenko bloc or the radical bloc, who I should present. The team who were responsible for the plan of actions generation, but we heard the point about the personnel issue. I'll start with I'll put the first question. In addition to what has been said by Oleksiy, do you have in the political force you present some personnel proposals? Because there are a lot of talk regarding the change of the government, etc., etc. So please. I'll try to answer your question. Certainly, I believe all the journalists and the public at large, we all heard that there is a problem today, a crisis, and accordingly everybody tries to find who is to blame and how to resolve the situation. Recently I was asked at one of the TV channels program who will be the minister. I said that I'm more concerned about how we're going to live through the autumn and winter time than the issue of who is going to be the minister. Today, for the first time ever in the history of Ukraine, we have not so much politicized discussion. We invited some of the foreign partner experts and who clearly explained what's what. We cannot manipulate with the fact that we lack 20,000 tons of coal, which is the fact. And also, we came up with specific dates. The minister also said that he will cope with everything. We are going to have the electric power and the light in our houses, no problem. So I believe that the problem of the further fate of the minister and the personnel situation will most depend upon how we are going to ensure that Ukraine is well prepared for the heating season, upcoming heat season. We actually came up with a plan of actions. We set up the anti-crisis energy headquarters, who has meetings on a weekly basis, which has never been the case before. So we are going to meet this month in the mid-September, and based on the plan of actions, and we are going to talk about the personnel problem resolution. But most importantly is what to do next in order to provide that we have all the necessary energy careers and find a way out of the situation. Also, I'd like to know in here, Oleksiy mentioned very correctly that the issue of energy is rather comprehensive. And one of the measures which has been supported by the cabinet of ministers, including the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, in order to decrease the rate, the rates for those who are private production company, in order to increase the production of natural gas. And a favorable fiscal regime will allow them to more efficiently work for the private players in the market. And they also provide the possibility to attract investments. This is one of the possible ways, to fiscal way to resolve the issue. And the decision is well balanced and correct. And in the long-term perspective, this will allow Ukraine to become more energy independent. Just a few remarks regarding what has been said by Natalia. Number one, back in June, when the MPs have the right to attend the meetings of the cabinet ministers. You know, there is an open part for the journalists and closed for the journal part. So at the beginning of June, Mr. Demchushin read the issue and asked the Prime Minister to allocate the money which were sitting in the saving banks in order to purchase coal. So today's situation is not the situation which is all of a sudden, you know, appeared here. No, we have to understand that this issue was raised much earlier, also in April and May, and that was raised during the cabinet ministers session, but it was not supported by the Prime Minister for some reason. I have a lot of questions speaking about the procedure available today and the level of the ministry pertaining to procurement of coal. Number two, regarding the fiscal policy of the gas production sector, yet in April, a number of the deputies, myself included, we submitted a number of the draft laws which provided for the kind of compromise between 50% rate and 28% rate which existed in the first half of 2014. 35% I'm talking about. So the government had to hire the international experts to carry out calculations and conduct roundtables to discuss everything and what was the result? We had the awareness that today's fiscal regime actually kills the private production of natural gas. We have a big lack of indication on the part of the MPs, speaking about specific problems, and recognition of those problems, which will lead to at least some steps on the part of our government. I'm talking about the realities here. And perhaps the last remark regarding this question. Yeah, you know, the names are not important, as Natalia mentioned. It's not important what political force is going to be responsible for the minister. Maybe this will be a technocrat. Myself as a representative of Verkhovna bloc and my colleagues who are freshmen in the parliament and more experienced colleagues of ours, our helping hand is always directed towards the government. We always are prepared to attract necessary resources, experts. We do work overtime. We like what we are doing. I mean, the cause we take care of. So irrespective of the names, the parliament will always help the government. And if we criticize today the government, only because we want a better future for our country. So please perceive this criticism as a constructive one. If somebody doesn't cope with his duties, he should not stay in his office. I can see some questions already, so please use the microphone, introduce yourself. Natalia Katser-Buchkovska. And my question to you as MPs, I would like to say that the agreement with the International Monetary Fund regarding the reform of the gas fund and the introduction of the new prices for everybody, it can be done only if we have the system of subsidizing of our citizens who are actually plunged in poverty, and the number of such people is 75%. They say, I dare say, when the prices for the electric power, water supply, and let's say, and water disposal, when the prices will increase drastically. So those who would need subsidies from this state, the number of those citizens will increase to 95%. Only now, only 2.5 million families subsidized, and we have 17 million. So this program failed completely. They did everything, the people never to apply for these subsidies, even when they badly need that. When completely failed this system of subsidizing, when really we which make an achievement adopted the law on the market of natural gas. At the same time, the parliamentary committee they submitted for the further improvement the respective draft law, to increase our own production of gas, and then immediately we have to decrease the prices by 7 or 8 times. So what are the prospects? Are they going to adopt this draft law, or it completely failed already? And the second draft law, and here is not your committee in charge, but the Elena Babak, we are talking about creating the single state system of monitoring of all the energy carriers and payment for them. This is the draft law, which twice was voted over the 15 years in the second reading, where all the authorities tried to, to torpedo. We are talking about the hundreds of billion hryvnia for the non-used energy carriers. They tried to put them in the pocket. Why Samopomish, when demonstrates were progressive views? Why the draft law was failed or torpedoed? Why again in June they struck it off the agenda for voting? Thank you, Natalia. Question number 1. Myself and my colleagues, I know that we exchange our impressions. We travel a lot to Ukraine and meet with the people. And number 1 question, and really is tariffs. People are just scared to death waiting for the fall when the tariffs are going to be increased. And the issue of subsidies, coming to these and other regions, and the people of age, they ask, I live in the countryside, I need to spend 40 hryvnia just to go somewhere to take care of registering, let's say, or applying for subsidies. And then, so we have to simplify this procedure. Not all the people, are going to get the subsidies. Not everybody even know about the subsidies. So the work, if not failed, but it's not satisfactory. We could do a lot more regarding this specific issue. Now we're talking about draft law you mentioned. We are going to fight for the, in order to adopt this draft law. There is a political component in this issue. There are some questions on the part of our international or partners, but our political force is going to do everything possible in order to persuade our partners within the coalition to help people in these specific issues. Speaking about the single system, you mentioned, we have a lot of overlapping issues between our committees. You mentioned, I know Alan Babak is a professional in your specific sphere. I did not follow attentively the discussion within the committee. I know that this specific issue on the agenda twice, but we didn't have time enough to take care of that. Let's see how the audience will, the MPs will respond to that. I believe that it would be sufficient to put this to the vote, and I believe that the Parliament, one of the most reformist Parliament, and our colleagues compared with the very first convocation of MPs when they were adopting the law on the independence of Ukraine. So I believe that there must be a system of monitoring. This is absolutely true. And what is provided for by this draft law and another draft law, I cannot say. I'm not a top expert in this specific issue, but the logic within that draft law is correct. But the implementation is doubted by my colleagues. You are talking about Samopovich, I'm going to say the following.
You have to understand that the agenda is changeable, and it is being changed not a week or 2 or 3 days before the session, but during the night before the session, and it is being formed by the apparatus, by the clerks in the parliament, and also by bigger factions. And this is what happened to this draft law when it vanished from the agenda. And when it is being put on the table on Friday, this is done on purpose so that it does not get voted for. Because on Fridays, as usual, we do not have, usually we do not have enough votes. So we ourselves have huge questions about why this agenda is being so formed and why it is being changed at 10 p.m. on the night before the voting. I'll answer your question. As in principle, there's a main motive to change the price and all the processes that are happening on the market of energy. This is the exclusion of those schemes that allowed for 20 years because of the accounting for the volume of natural gas, because of the lack of monitoring to manipulate to a great scale. One of the mechanisms is different prices for natural gas. As of today, the issue of raising the price for gas is not the issue of creating equal prices for all the citizens, but the issue of decreasing opportunities for manipulations with the prices for gas. As an experienced journalist in this sphere, you must know that the issue is not in how much people consume, but how they accounted for the gas. You know, when the price is similar, there's no place for manipulation. On the other hand, regrettably, we have a lot of poor citizens, maybe 80, maybe 90%. This we'll see when we will be issuing subsidies, but at the moment we have 2,400,000 citizens who have applied for subsidies and 400,000 those who applied, and 2 million of them have already got. Within 2 months, people became more active in asking for the subsidies, and the government should provide them with an opportunity to get the subsidies, and they should create a normal, healthy mechanism according to which they can get the subsidies. The mechanism is being perfected, and the Ministry for Social Policy is working on even better simplification, and the Prime Minister said during one of the briefings he will not leave Ukrainians without subsidies. Everybody understands that people cannot pay such prices, although this is not a market price. This is just 50% of the price that was proclaimed by stated by the regulator. So in fact, what's done for the people, the price is twice as little as the market price, and the mechanism for subsidies was offered, and there are centers for free legal help all around Ukraine where people can go where they have difficulties with filling in the declaration. There has to be interaction from both sides. On the one hand, the government that provides subsidies and money for subsidies, but statistics says that government should have the money for this, and the position of active stance of citizens who apply for subsidies. We also are now working on several draft laws about the accounting for heat and accounting for natural gas. These are critical draft laws because we are going to reach the normal level of consumption, not only because of the decrease of consumption, but because we will close all the loopholes for different manipulative schemes. And I always say that the price for the gas will be lower when we have a market for gas, when we have independent suppliers, and when the citizens get the opportunity to choose from whom they buy the gas. Then, according to the laws of economics, the price will be regulated. I have to be in another place. I have to apologize. Thank you very much. Thank you, Oleksiy, especially especially because you have come from Vinnytsia only at 3 a.m., where the current head of parliament and the former mayor of Vinnytsia shared his experience, including energy efficiency. We still have 10 minutes. Vitaly Knezhansky, the newspaper, 2 questions. First, to Natalia. You're talking about accounting for gas, that it should be transparent, but why the government or the parliament do not support the proposal to create the market, the stock market for the gas market for natural gas? I am also grateful to MPs who said that the government wants to lower the temperature in apartments to 16 degrees. As I understand from your mimics, the reaction is negative, but what if the government wants to lower it to 14 or 10 degrees? Will you also vote for this in the parliament? Thank you for the questions. But in fact, the temperature in the apartments is not the authority of the parliament. We do not adopt such laws. Yes, this is the authority of the executive power, and the lowering of the temperature sooner is the reaction to the challenges and the threat of crisis in the energy sector. And we are talking about the natural gas market as well, stock market, and I'm for Ukraine being supplied with gas and electricity. First of all, I'm for the accounting for the natural gas, and every citizen could define which temperature is more comfortable for themselves. Maybe someone will feel comfortable at 14 or 16 degrees, and we have to have the situation when every citizen can regulate this. So we are drafting this law, and this will be the best and the most correct way of regulating this issue. The citizens themselves should solve and decide this question. There should be meters, heat meters, and equipment that you can control the process with. Yes, this is possible. I think that this is possible, and this will be done with time. I don't know. We as a parliament have to adopt the law, and of course this is really not the question to the parliament. As far as the accounting for the gas and energy resources is concerned, I want to support my colleague here. There's a directive of EU number 27 which says that it is necessary in Europe to transfer all the consumers to meters. And as you know very well, in the countries of the former socialist bloc, the Warsaw Pact, there are the same problems with buildings raised in 1950s, 1970s. There's a problem of putting meters for every consumer, and they plan to solve this issue in 2020-25. So if Europe does not say we will do this tomorrow, let's be objective, and we cannot say that tomorrow we'll have energy meters and heat meters everywhere in Ukraine. We have to be realistic, and we have to explain to people that we have the intention that every consumer will pay only for the volume that they consume. And we should provide the time frame when this is done. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, please. I see the hand. Let's take 2 last questions. An independent journalist, I would like to hear the political and economic assessment of the decisions of the government to import coal from Russia, and also to export coal from the anti-terrorist operation zone.
Yes, Minister Demonstration announced that they were going to partially purchase coal in Russia. I cannot provide your economic or political assessment or relation with that, because I believe there are other alternative opportunities to buy coal, and at this point of time it's better to diversify and buy them from different sources, from other countries, etc. So we are going to assess or evaluate this action on the part of Minister Dmytro, whether there is economic, political expediency or reasonability to buy coal from the aggressor country. You mentioned two investors for center investor. Could you provide more detailed information on that? And another question regarding the coal traders who expressed their interest in that. And maybe you could be more or less specific about the negotiations in time. This is the question from the Mayor of the Week. I can provide you the information who specifically, what specific traders offer that or is part of the negotiation, because this is confidential information. I do not like the permission to disclose this information. I can only say that there is big-time international traders who met with the minister, who made their specific proposals and discussed, generally speaking, the possibility of the tenders for procurement of coal and their proposals regarding that. But this all ended or boiled down just for discussion. Now it was a discussion. Speaking about privatization, we are going to have a round table involving representatives of the World Bank, European Commission, EBRD, the profile minister, and we'll be blessed if he comes here. And we plan approximately mid-September or the end of September. We also would like to involve the investors who have a realistic point of view of such facility as the Center Energy, as the facility to invest in, for them to express their own point of view, their expectations, disclosure information, the dates for different stages, because to them privatization is a male deal. There is the stage for due diligence, which starts after providing information for the legal, financial, the legal due diligence, what they have to come up with the proposals. I'm not going to go into details about the procedure, but just to have a point of view, let's close everything or do everything by the end of the year. This is not a strategic approach. I already mentioned approximately we are going to have that in mid or September or the end of September. We do not have a specific date. We are just working on that. And two last questions. All other questions, beyond these premises. I'm sorry for that. I do appreciate your attention, and a special thank go to the MPs who managed to find the slot in their busy schedule to come here, explain and talk about this very important issue of the preparedness for the next heating season and the situation in the energy sector of Ukraine. Thank you.
Колеги, організаційне оголошення.
An organizing announcement. In 15 minutes we'll have an additional briefing by Anatoly Matyas, who is Deputy Prosecutor General, and he is the Chief Prosecutor